Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be covering an update to Alistair Begg's, but it's probably not the update that you're thinking of. This information is a little old, so this isn't breaking news, but Alistair Begg announced that he was going to retire this year, 2025. Reason this is important is because he is the same pastor who faced flack from the evangelical right and other conservatives for his advice that was very specific to a grandmother on whether or not to attend her grandson's gay wedding. Here, as you can see, I have featured a video that I did previously. This was completed back on February 13th, 2024, and I will link it in the description below. This has that information as well as links containing more information if you would like to go on a deep dive of your own. As I said, this is relatively old news. From the Roy's report written by Liz Likens on September 12th, 2024, we have an article titled Pastor Alistair Begg to retire from Parkside Church. Below we have an image of the pastor, and I begin reading. Pastor and radio host Alistair Begg announced he will be retiring as the senior pastor of Parkside Church near Cleveland, Ohio on September 14th, 2025, according to the church's website. Linked here. Begg has been serving as senior pastor of Parkside Church in Chagrin Falls, Ohio since 1983. The 72-year-old pastor is known for his radio ministry, Truth for Life. The program has more than 6 million episodes downloaded each month and is carried by more than 1,900 radio stations worldwide, according to the ministry's website. Begg will continue to work at Truth for Life after his retirement from the pastorate at Parkside next year, the church's website stated. Begg's teachings at Truth for Life have regularly stemmed from the, quote, week-by-week Bible teaching, end quote, at Parkside Church, his ministry's website said. At Truth for Life, Begg earns around $380,000 annually for an average of 20 hours of work per week, according to the organization's 990 forms, linked here. From Ministry Watch, article written by Tony Mader back on September 16th, 2024, titled Alistair Begg Announces 2025 Retirement from Parkside Church Pulpit, subtitled The Pastor, Author, and Radio Host Will Continue Work with Truth for Life Ministry. Months after drawing rebukes from Christian leaders for advising a woman to attend her grandson's transgender wedding, Truth for Life radio Bible teacher Alistair Begg announced his retirement as senior pastor of Parkside Church in Cleveland, Ohio. Begg, 72, broke the news to his congregation Sunday, September 8th, giving a projected end date of September 14th, 2025. The Scottish-born evangelical, well known for his radio broadcasts syndicated on over 1,800 networks across North America, explained the early announcement is intended, quote, to make it clear, parentheses, it, and parentheses, is not precipitous, end quote. He also said the advance notice will help his, quote, ambition to pass the baton safely into the hands of my successor, end quote, and will give the church, quote, time to adjust to the prospect of and to prepare in a timely way for what this transition will mean, end quote. Begg also explained the significance of the chosen date. Quote, that particular day will be 50 years since I began with Derek Prime at Charlotte Chapel. It will be 49 years since I was ordained to the gospel ministry, end quote, he said. Quote, and it will be 42 years from the time that, parentheses, my wife, in parentheses, Sue and I had the privilege of beginning ministry here at what was then the chapel in Beechwood, end quote. Begg said the thought of no longer preaching from the Parkland pulpit seems, quote, strange, end quote, but insisted his work in Christian ministry is not ending. Quote, I will have opportunities as time and interest and health, parentheses, enable, end parentheses, me to be involved in various places and things. certainly to be more committed and more involved at Truth for Life when I don't have the responsibilities and privileges here, end quote, Begg said. A statement linked here on Parkside Church's website confirmed that after he retires from the pastorate, Begg, quote, will continue his pastoral and ministry work at Truth for Life, end quote, which he co-founded and has served as the voice of since it aired its first broadcast on February 27, 1995. Begg has authored multiple devotionals and other books, including the recently published, quote, Christian Manifesto, Jesus' Life-Changing Words from the Sermon on the Plain, end quote, linked here. He is known for his memorable presentation of the gospel in which he imagined the thief on the cross walking to the gates of heaven. More recently, however, his name has come to be associated with an in-house debate among evangelical Christians on how to relate to those who identify as LGBTQ. Begg has doubled down on his controversial wedding advice. However, the conservative Calvinistic pastor opposes same-sex weddings and continues to affirm a biblical view of marriage and sexuality. Here ends the article. Already we have two very different articles. One focuses on the 990 and less on the LGBTQ controversy, and the other one focuses almost entirely on the LGBTQ controversy and less, actually not at all, on the 990 form. The amount of $380,000 a year for 20 hours a week of teaching honestly seems rather minuscule compared to a lot of megachurch pastors' salaries. Do you think it's related to the LGBTQ controversy? In my less than humble opinion, it is not. As written in the Roy's report here regarding another megachurch pastor, I quote, Stovall Weems, who served decades with Hodges on the ARC lead team and pastored an ARC megachurch for 24 years, told the Roy's report, parentheses TRR in parentheses, that leadership transitions of this magnitude are usually 2 to 3 year processes. This would be consistent with how other, longtime megachurch pastors like Alistair Begg and John Piper transitioned out of their pastoral roles after pastoring for decades. Begg announced in September 2024 he would retire in September 2025. Piper announced his retirement in 2011, but didn't step down until 2013. Now, it's not a couple of years. It's a year. So I could see Ministry Watch being very focused on Alistair Begg's comments, especially with how virulent Warren Smith was against Pastor Begg's comments. However, it's a year, it's not overnight, and there's always a possibility that the retirement will be extended out another year if they're not able to find a suitable successor for Alistair Begg. This is the other reason I don't believe it has anything to do with the controversy. As you scroll down, there's not a lot of announcements about Alistair Begg in 2025, or at least not a lot of articles written about him in 2025. In the past year, most of the focus is on the retirement, which was, according to the search results here, announced as early as September 9th, 2024, by Alistair Begg's own podcast. And as you continue to search and scroll down, seeing all of the many results here, you'd be understood in wondering, well, okay, where are all the articles writing about his alleged support for LGBTQ plus people? Where is this controversy? Where are all the articles? Where's all the backlash? You'd think it would be ongoing, wouldn't you? You would think that there'd be people continually making a mountain out of a molehill In this case, the molehill of what the pastor gave is very specific advice to the grandmother of a transgender person. Also, if the controversy was still ongoing, you would think that places like Focus on the Family, as we can see here, would not so prominently display him. See, the blurb that they have for him says nothing about the controversy. Also, looking for just general news and reactions to it, there's not a lot out there from actual Christian sources. Not that I think that the secular realm would take much notice of it, but you would think if the controversy was still ongoing, there'd be more people involved, more news articles, more YouTube reactions to Alistair Begg's retirement than there are currently. Like the video that I have featured here as an example. Now, after a second search, I did come across this video where, again, same time frame as the previous video, same time frame in the retirement video. All in the same month when Pastor Begg announced that he was planning to step down in the following year and search for someone who would be his successor to Parkside.
Will you comment and guide us as to why Alistair Begg is mistaken in advising a member of his flock to attend and solemnize a marriage of her granddaughter to a transgender partner? Can you guide us as to why we should not bend to do this?
Yeah. Again, same thing as I said last time. Don't know which of the parties are transgender, and don't know if that means that the wedding is technically gay or not. Don't know how much information is accurate here. But here's MacArthur's response.
That question
Thank you.
Came up and has gotten all over the internet. Let me say, first of all, that Alistair and I have been friends for, 45 years. When I was in Scotland 45 years ago, I was pushing his 45-year-old son in a pram. You know what a pram is, Neil? It's like a baby buggy. So we've had a lot of history together. And I have a great affection for him. I also want to say that you shouldn't judge a man by his weakest moment. All of us will have a moment of weakness. Having said that, I have to disagree with the answer that he gave to the question. A believer should not go to a homosexual transgender wedding for a lot of reasons. But he was making the argument that you go out of compassion rather than condemnation. You go to show love to them as a means to reach them.
And already, Pastor MacArthur has shown that he didn't understand Alistair Begg's comments. If he cannot understand that his dear friend was giving very specific advice to one particular person, without giving so much information that the poor grandmother herself would be doxxed. This, like all other links, will be included in the description below. You would also think that this would mean that Alistair Begg would not be invited to nor participate in any more conferences. However, there's been many conferences here in 2025 that he's been invited to, even if it doesn't necessarily include the Shepherd's Conference. I looked back through the list, through the videos for the Shepherd's Conference, and I don't see Alistair Begg's name on it. Here, Basics 2025, he was Welcome and Main Session 1. Then we have Family Life. Family Life has a 2025 Pastors Conference. That includes Alistair Begg. We have Keep the Fire Burning Conference, which also has Pastor Alistair Begg. Hell, we have the Gospel Coalition. a very famous and very much conservative Christian magazine, an organization that has this Alive Together conference. And who do they have featured for speakers? They have Alistair Begg featured with John Piper. There's also another conference that seems very similarly themed to the other ones, where it's conservative, Christian, and you have talks about sexuality and gender, and he's listed there with multiple other pastors who think along very similar lines, especially when you look at one of the workshops, which is titled God's Design for Gender, Answers to the Serpent's Trans Attack. I don't think that his retirement and his getting ready to prepare to technically leave the church that he's currently teaching at, leaving Parkside, I don't think that has anything to do with the words that he misspoke. Now, his relationship with John MacArthur may never be repaired. How much of a loss that is, only Alistair Begg could say that. But I don't think that the minor flare-up due to what he said last year and how it was misconstrued, I don't think that has any bearing on his retirement. Could be wrong. There could be more information. We'll see what happens. Thanks for watching/listening, and I will see you in the next one.